All right, there we go. What I want to talk about today is basically wanting to be seen by other people, but maybe also something along the lines of fear of negative evaluation. So, fearing that you might do something stupid in a social situation and that kind of leaving you embarrassed or whatever. Yeah, I don't know what part I will focus on, but I guess that's the exciting part. So, yeah, so first of all, um, probably any human being has a underlying awareness of other people and other people's opinion, right? Generally speaking. Maybe there are exceptions to that, but for most of us, that's how it goes. We, as social animals, always have to keep in mind how other people think about us and how they evaluate us. And with that comes a desire to, be seen as a functional member of society, for example. And I've kind of realized that I've all been pretty much all my life I've been chasing to be seen by others in a certain way, and yeah, it kind of dictates major portions of my life, right? I mean, not just me, also other people. Maybe you want to become a doctor or whatever because yes, you find the medical field, interesting, but there's probably also an underlying wish in many of students that study medicine to, be appreciated or to see themselves valued, to have their parents be proud of them and stuff like that. Um, and yeah, in in some cases, I guess it's not necessarily a bad thing, but I definitely feel like I've been enslaved by that for so long, and it kind of prohibits me from doing the things I want, or I always feel like I'm pushed into a corner because of it, right? Because of that kind of thing, it works one way or the other, right? For one, you can say, "Hey, I want to be seen in a good way," and the best way to ensure that is to not be seen in a bad way. So with that comes the fear of negative evaluation, right? So the fear that other people might perceive you in a negative light. But because of that, I've been like chronically avoiding situations where I could be negatively evaluated. Um, right? For example, I have a really hard time to talk to new people, generally speaking, or not just the talking part, but just the whole like approaching a stranger is like borderline impossible for me. And it seems ridiculous how you could even think about that, right? Because, what if they think you're a fucking weirdo? What if they do this and what if they do that? And yeah, it just ties into the thing of being scared that other people might perceive you in one way or another. And it's imprisoning, or it's like it kind of puts you into this prison state, mental prison, whatever. So basically, um, it prohibits you from, like I said, from doing certain things. In my case, approaching new people, and that kind of ties into other problems as well, like the fear of missing out or whatever. When you get like major FOMO because you think, hey, I've never really tried to reach out to people that I don't know. So I've always been with the same people I know, and I've never really tried to challenge myself and my perception or my friend group, or I haven't really tried to put myself into situations where you can really, I guess, grow as a person and yeah, do whatever, right? Um, so yeah, it's kind of strange because when you think about it, or when I think about it, why I care so much about other people's opinion, I don't know. Like when I think, when I really try to put my mind into it, like why do I care if this person, this random person, cares about my opinion or cares about what I say? But for some reason, I obviously do, right? And I can feel the effects of it. But yeah, I guess you could also say like, or at least I'm sometimes thinking like, hey, why would I care? Especially like people that I have no close connection to, or people that you maybe don't even like people that you dislike anyway. Why would you even care about their opinion, right? But for some reason, maybe I'm just a people pleaser or something like that. And yeah, sorry if you hear my stomach rumbling and grumbling. I'm hungry right now, but anyway, I wanted to put this video out first. So the point being that I I'm not quite sure why I care so much. I guess other than that's just natural instinct. But it also works in, in the other direction, that I always felt like I wanted to avoid people thinking bad things about me, but I also wanted people to think highly of me, alright? Perceive that I am like smart, perceive that I'm like this or that, and with that obviously comes the whole thing of trying to pretend like you're someone that you are not, right? Which is, I guess, you know, I guess most people are pretty boring when it comes down to it, right? We're just normal people, but you feel like you don't want to be perceived that way. You want to be perceived as, unique and interesting, because no one wants to hang out with someone who doesn't bring anything to the table, who is boring, right? Yeah. I thought about, like, what if you had the opportunity to not care about other people's opinion at all? Like, would it actually benefit you or not? Because if you think about it, like everything you do, or like most things you do, have like a negligible, or like a no, like a tangible, that's the word, a tangible effect on how other people perceive you, right? Like with everything you do, you are always aware of that, or not aware of that, but you're always aware of how other people perceive you, even if you don't directly think about it, right? But like, let's say you wouldn't care about other people's opinion at all anymore, not even a fraction. Like, would it be a good thing or a bad thing? Because on the one hand, it would be very freeing, I assume, right? Because you can just do whatever you want and not care about any repercussions, right? But maybe, I mean, if we're talking about evolution, then there's probably a reason why social animals care about, or why we as social animals care about other people's opinion, right? Because it's probably for the better, that you feel that kind of societal pressure, like not for the better as an individual, but like as a whole of society or evolution or whatever. Like if everyone was just completely saying like screw everyone, I'm just gonna do whatever the fuck I want, and not conform to like anything, Like I literally mean, like some people might say like, oh, I'm like non-conformist and I do whatever I want, but even those people have certain rules that they try to follow and stuff. But I mean, like if you really didn't care at all about anything, like maybe the world would fall into chaos or something. Like if you let's say, like for example, shitting your pants, right? It's obviously suboptimal, not a great thing to happen to you, but if you didn't care at all about other people's opinion, then it wouldn't be that big of a deal, I think, right? Probably because it's not embarrassing then. Like, things only become embarrassing because you perceive the opinion of other people, right? That's when you lie awake at night and think about, like, oh, X cringe thing, embarrassing thing that I did like years ago. Um, if you didn't care about other people's opinion, then you would not think about it. Like, you would just not mind. Like, it wouldn't even, you would just forget about it. Um, but yeah, that's the one thing, and the other thing is like trying to feel like you or that other people see you in a good way, right? And I think we're all guilty of that in some way or another. And I am very, very guilty of that. Like, when I think about it, for example, that's very cringe. But hey, it um, ties into the topic really well. But yeah, it's really cringe for me to say that. But for example, when you listen to a song or like an artist and you really like that song, like I would have this thing, and to be honest, I still kind of have it, and like that I'm imagining myself, like maybe doing or performing the song myself in front of like a group of people, and everyone thinking like, oh my god, look at him, he's like such a good singer and he's so talented and whatever, right? It's so fucking cringe for me to talk about this, but yeah, that's how we roll on this channel. So, but you did it as well, like you can say like, oh, yeah, like that's so fucking cringe, and it is, to be fair. But every one of us did something like that in some way, right? Like, even when you say, oh, or like for like dudes or whatever who are like, okay, I want to get fit, I want to get jacked or whatever, like 90% of these people are like subconsciously at least thinking about like, oh, when I am jacked and I look better, people will perceive me differently, which is, I mean, true. And in that case, I guess it's not necessarily like a super bad thing to get fit. So other people look at you and think like, wow, like he really lost some weight, or like he looks a lot better now, right? But having your entire life determined by that, um, and through that fucking yourself over, is obviously not optimal, because like in my case it's kind of like a, how you say, like a reverse reaction, because um I don't want to be perceived as cringe, um so I do stuff that is then, you know even more cringe in a way, because you know saying something stupid, for example, can be very cringe. But if you go through all your life not saying anything, and people always think like, what's wrong with this guy, he's never talking, or he's never trying to engage in any kind of social interactions and situations and stuff, like that's also I guess cringe. And for one it's cringe, but um more so it's just, it really prohibits you from living life to the fullest, and you always feel like, again, like you had like FOMO and stuff, you feel like you're always missing out because you don't really take those social opportunities, um and that makes you feel even more, you know miserable, and more like you don't fit in, and then just being cringe when you're sitting alone and think like, wow, I'm like even more so of an social defect, I guess, than if I would just be within groups and social groups and say something cringe every once in a while, right? If you're just alone, then I guess you're not cringe, but I mean, in some way, life is much worse that way. Um, yeah, but I guess everyone thinks about how they are perceived and stuff, except maybe like monks or whatever, who are really just like completely shutting themselves off from pretty much anyone, everyone, and who basically get no evaluation from other people whatsoever. And maybe that's actually healthier for you. I talked about social media yesterday, and obviously that also kind of ties into it, that why are people so obsessed with Instagram and posting pictures and stuff? Like, there would be no need for that, right? If it wasn't for, oh, look, I do X great thing, please look at me, evaluate me, and say how, that my, like, Instagram, for example, is really like, everyone just tries to pretend to have the best life ever, like they could have the shittest life ever, but the point is that you have to try to make it seem like, oh, look, all these great places where I'm at, all the cool people by my side, and this and that, and even this channel as well, right? I could just make these videos and keep them to myself, but I still upload them in hopes that someday they are seen by someone, right? But yeah, again, is that like a bad thing? Should I feel bad about it? Because it's not like, I mean, to give myself a little bit of credit here, it's not like I'm exactly portraying myself in the most flattering angle, Like, I mean, I do talk a lot about stuff that other people would just immediately call cringe anyway. So, I don't know. Like, I feel like these videos, I could just make them for myself, yes, but again, maybe there is a value that comes from me uploading these videos on the internet at some point. I don't know if there will ever be such a point, but maybe someone watches these videos and thinks, hey, I like that. And that's what I said, like, about, is it really always bad to care about other people's opinion? Like, wanting to make someone happier is also caring about someone else's opinion and stuff, right? Like, if you just didn't care about that whatsoever, then you're kind of like a psychopath or something, right? If you didn't care if someone else was, empathy is also a form of caring about other people's, well, not opinion necessarily, but it kind of ties into the whole thing as well, right? Into caring about other people. And if you make someone happy and they think like, hey, thank you for doing that, that's so nice of you, obviously that also gives you validation, because that person thinks of you highly, but it also makes you feel like, hey, maybe I did a good thing, right? So in some circumstances, it might be acceptable, I think. But I've definitely overdone it a fair bit. So I'm definitely at least trying to care less, even though there's so much easier said than done. And I've had like moments where I really thought like, hey, I don't have to care. Why should I care? I just don't have to care. But there comes a moment where you're kind of like taken back into it, and then you're thinking, yeah, I guess I do care, even if I try to force myself into, or gaslight myself into thinking that I do not care. And that thought can be very freeing, certainly, to say like, you know what, I'm just not gonna care at all. But you are probably gonna care a little bit, nevertheless, right? But yeah, maybe caring a little bit is not necessarily the problem. But yeah, I think that's all I have to say for now. A little bit short this time, but we're still at the 20-minute mark, so not really that short by any stretch of the imagination. Yeah. So that's all for today. Goodbye.